Hello, hello, welcome. My name is Ken Lewicki of the Ask Ken Show. I'm so glad to have you watching this today, and we're going to have some fun. We're going to do some channeling and answer some of your spiritual questions. So, if you're watching, you can go ahead and just ask any questions that you have. And what I will do is I will live channel the answers. So, yeah, just go ahead, type in your questions that you might have for me today. And if you're watching the recording, you can also put some messages or questions in the comments. And then when I see those, I can add those to my list for the next time, the next Ask Ken show. So the reason why I do this is a forum where you can ask your questions, and where else do you go to get these spiritual questions asked or answered? And also, the other reason that I do this is because I want to emulate to my students that you can make channeling an everyday, normal part of your life. You don't have to go in any weird like trance state or anything like that. You can if you want, but you don't have to. And where eventually I want to get all my students is to a point where they can integrate channeling into all the areas of their life. And then eventually they don't do channeling, they become channeling. Channeling becomes a part of them. It becomes a natural state for them. It's an everyday normal thing for them. They could do it when they're hanging out at a restaurant with some friends. They can do it when they bump into a stranger. They can channel when they're at work and have conversations with their manager or their boss. And it's no big deal. It's just a regular part of their life, but they're able to access and harness the whole spirit realm. We are probably maybe 1 to 2% physical. This physical body of ours, the physical reality that we see is maybe 1 to 2%. So what about that other 98%? How about if we access that on a regular all day basis, normal basis, how much we could like just really improve our lives, improve the lives of others, make this world a better place by teaching people how to channel. That's my mission. My life's mission is to do this. And I strongly feel that as a species, if we want to not just survive, but thrive as a species, this is one of the integral parts of us evolving as a highly evolved species. And so that's why I dedicate my life to this. And welcome along the journey. If you're new to me, my name's Ken Lewicki. Welcome. And if you've been with me for a while, again, welcome. I love having you here. And let's get to our first question. So the first question is, what, from the other side, what is it like to be a spirit guide? So our spirit guides, when we die and we cross over, we go to the other side, to the astral realm. While we're in the astral realm, we reside there with our soul family in the astral realm. When we're incarnated, certain members of our soul family help and assist us. These are our spirit guides. And my experience over the 20 plus years I've been teaching people how to channel is that most people have somewhere between 3 to 5 spirit guides. And each spirit guide helps in a different way, different capacity, different area of your life. And they are people like you and I, just in non-physical form. They are souls. They are people. We get to angels and dragons and all that other cool stuff later. That's another topic. And our spirit guide team, though, is what they do is they help us in different areas of our life. And so when we die and we cross over, sometimes when we're in spirit form, we can maybe assist and help and guide other people when they're incarnated, but not always. We can, and not everyone does. So some people want to, their spiritual ego, they call it, where they're like, oh, I, do this and do that on the other side. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you can check. You can check with your guides, and also know that it's actually not. There's quite a there's how do I say this? There's quite a few souls that don't actually become spirit guides. So when you do cross over, you might be a spirit guide for somebody else, but most likely not, but maybe. Um, and what I've realized over the years, there's a few workshops that I train that I teach. One is called Your Soul's Blueprint. Before you incarnate, you work with ascended masters in your soul family and also very high level souls in your soul family to develop and lay out, map out what you want to achieve and accomplish in this incarnation that you're just about to enter into. And then you're born as a baby, you come through your mother's womb, and then from there you start your journey. And I call it a rough blueprint because it's not set in stone. There's free will. You have your free will. and other people have their free will. And so we can go, I use the analogy, like imagine like traces on a PCB board, a printed circuit board, and there's those different traces. Well, sometimes you might be going down one path, and then that the path that you're going down might change to another trace, another path. And then now next thing you know, you're on a different path because of either your free will or someone else's free will. So for example, there was a time when my father, he had a job offer when I was a child. He had a job offer in a different state for us to go and live in a different place in a different city. And I was going to go, but then I decided not to. Or he decided not to. He decided not to take that job offer. So because he decided not to take that job offer, we were we stayed in the same city. My brother and I grew up in the same place, and we continued on that same trajectory, that same path that we were on. However, had he decided to take that job offer and went on a different path, or yeah, that would have taken my brother and I on a different path, not necessarily good or bad, right or wrong, just a different trajectory. And so that in that case, because we were both really young at that time, we would have had no choice but to go with him. And then that's where someone else's free will could also impact us as well. So this is important to know. It's not just about your free will. Sometimes it's about other people's free will. Oh, Antonio from BC says hi. Hi, Antonio. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, anyone, just go ahead and um, say your name and where you're from. We have also Nathan. We have Joel. Thank you all for tuning in. Okay, and so what happens is when we're incarnated, we're going down this path. We're going down these traces. We're going down these different trajectories. Sometimes this way, sometimes that way, because we have free will. Sometimes we make poor, unhealthy choices, and it leads us into not a necessarily good situation or position, and that's okay as well. That could be a learning experience, but some people it's not. Some people it goes even worse, and it's happened to me. And so when our spirit guides from our members of our soul family, the souls, people are assisting us and trying to help us. So just to be clear, of the 7 or 8 billion people on this planet, everybody has spirit guides. Okay, so everyone does. Everybody channels, whether they're conscious of it or not. And we've all had that time when we're getting guidance to, either do this, do this, do this, do this, or don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And then again, we have free will. We can decide whether we do, whether we don't. Just remember that all choices, good or bad, they have consequences. Good consequences, not so good consequences. And we hopefully can learn from those consequences. Oh, that worked. Let's keep doing more of that. Or that didn't work. Let's not do that again. Stuff like that. Or let's learn from that. So putting ourselves in our spirit guide's shoes is a very valuable tool, because I teach my students that it's actually a spirit guide. Like spirit guides, imagine yourself in their shoes, and you're in spirit form and you're trying to assist and help a person who's incarnated. How do I go about doing this? Well, what I do, this isn't hypothetical, this is what souls actually do. Spirit guides do. So they work with ascended masters in your soul family. So your spirit guides are also members of your soul family. These ascended masters that they're working with are also members of your soul family. And they're working together. And these ascended masters are teaching and training these souls from your soul family how to be spirit guides for you. And these ascended masters are also training other souls from your soul family how to be spirit guides for other members of your soul family who are incarnated on this planet right now. So have you ever met somebody, you've never met them before, but it's your first time meeting, and you're like, oh my God, I feel like I've known you forever. Like, whoa, I feel like I've known. That's most likely, sometimes we just have amazing chemistry, but that's most likely because you two are members of the same soul family. Right? And it's not, when you say, I feel like I've known you forever, if they truly are a member of your soul family, it's because you've literally known them, not just for, this moment that you just met them, but you've known them for eons and probably many lifetimes that you've incarnated together. And also in between lives, between when you're neither one of you are incarnated, you're in the astral realm, hanging out, residing together, fellowshipping, stuff like that. And so you have incarnate soul family members all over the planet right now, and they're different ages, different demographics, different parts of their journey, and we might bump into some once in a while, and it's just woo, like amazing. It might be brief, it might become long-term friends, might become BFF, it might not. Sometimes we might have butt heads, but that doesn't mean they're not soul members of soul family. It just means that that's a whole other topic about how they can have traumas from this lifetime, unresolved traumas from past lifetimes, ancestral lineage that needs to be healed, and other akashic records healing that they need, and all that other stuff. So that's why sometimes people might butt heads even if they are members of the same soul family. And other times you get along just amazing, great, and sparks fly. It could be romantic, it might not be romantic, it could be just friendship, but it's amazing friendship and really close, all that other stuff. So those other soul family members also have spirit guides. Well, who are those spirit guides? Where do they come from? If you and this other person are of the same soul family, and your spirit guides are of your soul family, their spirit guides are of their soul family. Well, you both have spirit guides of the same soul family. Does this make sense? Right? It's mind-boggling. It's cool. Super cool. And then you meet someone else who's not a member of your soul family. Again, that's not good or bad, right or wrong. Like there's lots of people I'm friends with that were not members of the same soul family. That's okay. We can still get along. We can still hang out. We can still have laughs. We still, call each other, talk with each other, and hang out and all that other fun stuff. Because they're members of a different soul family, they have different spirit guides from their soul family. You have yours of your soul family. So now, when you start to channel and you're starting to learn who your spirit guide team is, again, how many spirit guides most people have? 3 to 5. Each spirit guide helps in a different way, in a different capacity, a different area of your life. So get to know your spirit guides. Now, what I recommend my students do, when I first started teaching people how to channel, I used to just think each spirit guide had like an energy signature that's unique about them. But then over the years, what I noticed is that the energy signature wasn't just one thing. The energy signature was many things about each spirit guide, many things, not just one thing. And so these are what I call like subcomponents or sub energy signature components about each spirit guide. So get to know your spirit guides, not just on which spirit guide is it around me? How do they feel? What do they like? But no, instead, get to know their subcomponents. And then from there, you can really start to go deep on who each spirit guide is, how they're here to help you. And then ask the question, okay, so this spirit guide feels like this. This is their overall energy signature, okay? And then you try to get a name, because they are people, right? Try to get a name. Which spirit guide is this? They might go by a name. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And if they don't go by a name, that's okay. Just give them a label for now. But then ask the question is, what area of my life does this spirit guide help me with? And try to figure that out. And then once you figure out, and again, if we have 20, 30, 50, 80, 100 different areas of our life, and we have 3 to 5 spirit guides, so that means that one spirit guide doesn't just help in one area of your life, it helps in many areas of your life. So then you ask, okay, so what area or areas of my life does this one guide help in? And then figure out which topic that spirit guide wants to bring up in this moment, and then try to receive answers from this spirit guide. And then when you notice another spirit guide's presence, a totally different spirit guide, totally different soul come in, how is the energy signature of this other spirit guide different than this one? And what subcomponents does this spirit guide have? And then how does this other spirit guide help in this other area of my life? Like, what other area of my life does this spirit guide help me in? Right? What area of my life does this spirit guide help me in? And then figure out how this spirit guide helps differently than this spirit guide. And now we're getting somewhere. Okay, and if you have three spirit guides, do that with the other one. If you have four, do that with the other one. If you have five, do that with the other one, and so on. Okay. So then what you're doing is you're starting to to know your spirit guide team. You're starting to get to know who they are, how they're here to help you, how they're here to assist you. Now, let's take it a step further. Just the other day, I did a training. I had over 50 people online, and I took them through a process where I had them feel what it's like to be a spirit guide. Now, there's a strategy behind this because oftentimes we just think it's me and my life and it's all about me. But remember, like I said earlier, it's actually quite difficult to be a spirit guide. So when you start to put yourself in your spirit guide's shoes, then you can say, okay, if I know what it's like for me to be living my life and going along my journey and all that, so what's it like for me to be a spirit guide? Then I can say, okay, well, how can I assist my spirit guide to help me, to help him or her or him? How can I help them to get messages through to me easier? How can I assist them? So there's a subject that it's called Bridging the Gap. And the reason I came about this was for about the first like 10 years of my spiritual awakening, I've been teaching people how to channel for over 20 years. In the first 10 years, I was like just sitting back going, okay, um, okay, spirit guides, you do all the work. I'm just going to sit here. I'll just receive. And then what I realized after about 10 years of this was that actually it's quite difficult to be a spirit guide. So why don't I help them out? Why don't I assist my spirit guides? Why don't I try to make it easier for them? That should make messages start to come in clearer. The messages start to come in accurate. And so how can I help my spirit guides? So if you're watching this is what I want you to practice. If you have a spirit guide around you right now, and we all do, again, your spirit guides will never abandon you. If we have 3 to 5 spirit guides, sometimes one or two might step back for a moment, go do some stuff in the astral realm, some teaching, some training, some learning, some upgrades, stuff like that, and then come back and assist you. But you'll never have all your spirit guides step back at the same time. You always have a few that are there out of the 3 to 5. And so what I want you to do right now is I want you to feel around you, feel your spirit guides around you, and try to figure out where they are physically around you. And the reason I developed this strategy with my students is because what I notice is that sometimes people's minds are wandering just aimlessly. If we had the highly sensitive camera system, the new technology that's out there, you might have seen them on ghost hunter shows and things like that. We could put a camera in your room and we can actually capture your spirit guides on camera. This is really cool and this is really important. So if your spirit guide is over here, you want to focus over here, not just aimlessly in the ether, just randomly. If your spirit guide's over here, you want to focus. Actually, I have a female guide right here behind me right now. She's cool. She's from Egypt, African area. She's cool. So if he or she, if spirit guide is here, this is where you're getting the messages from. So you want to focus on where they are physically around you because it's going to increase your accuracy. So everything is about increasing your accuracy. One of the biggest things that almost all my students that are new to my channeling training, when they come to me, they always ask, how do I know if it's me or if I'm just making it up? Like, how do I know if it's me making it up, it's in my imagination, or if it's legitimately coming from my spirit guides? This is one of the many methods that I've developed to help my students increase their accuracy, increase their confidence, so that they can be confident that the messages they're getting are truly coming from their spirit guides and it's not just them making it up. Okay. So, one of the strategies that I developed, also, one of the many, is put yourself in the shoes of a spirit guide. What does it feel like? This male guy, use him as an example, so I'll use him. So I'm channeling live right now. I'm just making this stuff up. These aren't just random words. This is all live channeling. You can do this as well. Practice, you know, who you're channeling, what you're channeling, how to do it. You can do this. Okay, so this male guide in this live example, if I can put myself in his shoes and feel what it's like to be a spirit guide, then I can go, oh, when I'm putting myself in his shoes, this is what would make it easier for me to get messages to the person that I'm guiding, the incarnated human. Oh, this is how I can, work with this incarnated human easier. This is what the incarnated human can do to make it easier for me. And so you're now starting to see how the two of you are collaborating as a team rather than it being one-sided, like I'm just going to sit here and let you do all the work. No, I'm going to work with my spirit guide to go back and forth to kind of see how it works on their end and their perspective. So it's kind of like, let's say you're a student in a class and you're just sitting there, and then the teacher's like, "Okay, I'm going to get you to come up, and now you're going to be the teacher. You're going to be in my shoes, and good luck. Go for it." And then you'll have students that are acting out and being troublemakers and all that, and you'll be like, "Oh man, okay. When I go sit down, I'm never going to be a troublemaker again. I'm going to be gentle and easy on my teacher because I know what that's like to have that happen to me." So same kind of concept. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to trade places with your spirit guide. Now, if you're watching this and you're doing it live, and I hope you are, even if you're watching the recording, is what I want you to do now is even more powerful. So a lot of times when people channel, and it's not bad, it's not wrong, but what they do is they channel from their head. The magic happens in our bodies. So that's really a powerful teaching and learning. If you're watching this and you're writing notes, write that down. The magic happens in our bodies. And as much as possible, if we can channel from our soul, so this is our heart center. This is our heart center. This is our solar plexus. And then right in between is where our soul resides. So right where the sternum is, in the bottom part of that sternum where your ribs meet at the bottom, that's called your sternum. That's just called the seat of the soul. If you can channel from that area instead of your head, the connection will be much more powerful. So try it. Don't just go, oh, Ken says this. Try it out. Try channeling from your body. Try channeling from your soul. So I call this a soul to soul connection. And what you're trying to do and attempt to do is increase your connection so it's more like a solid connection between you and your spirit guide. And the two of you are flowing energy between each other and flowing communication between each other. And it's seamless and it's non interrupting. It's just beautiful connection between the two of you. And then what happens is as you're going along and you're communicating this beautiful connection with your spirit guide, start to feel what it's like to be in their position. And now you start to feel what it's like to have a soul to soul connection, but from your spirit guide's side. If you want to try this and try it, try attempting to be in your spirit guide's position and have a soul to mind, like their soul to your mind. And you'll notice, like I'm doing it right now live, that the connection isn't quite as strong. It's weaker. It's like significantly weaker. Not it's not again, it's not good or bad, right or wrong, but it's not as strong and powerful as if you have this soul to soul connection. So this is what we want to shoot for. We want to shoot for this soul to soul connection. And so as we're developing our skills, we're really trying to feel like what their presence is like. And I tell people this. This is a really important disclaimer: is that like when you're working with with your spirit guides, is try not to just don't negate or neglect your head. When you're channeling, use common sense. Sometimes if people always want to make things all like ultra spiritual, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But sometimes just use common sense. It's like, should I tip this waiter or whatever? Yeah, tip the waiter, like stuff like that. Just, like just use common sense sometimes. If you're having a conversation with somebody, just have common sense sometimes. Sometimes we like to overcomplicate things and make things way more complicated than it needs to be. But it doesn't need to be complicated all the time. Sometimes we can just be really simple about things, and we can, just use common sense. You know, uh, should I quit my job? The answer is no. If you have a job and it's secure and it's relatively decent, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect job, but if it's paying the bills, keep your job while you're working on your other side projects, your side business, stuff like that, so that you can build that business and then eventually get to a point where you can quit your full-time job if that's your goal. But rather than being reckless and just quitting and then being, oh, I don't know, I'll figure it out. Like, I mean, you can do that, but that's risky unnecessarily if you can just keep your job for a few years while you build your other business or your other project. And then when you get to a point when you're stable and your other projects, then you can consider maybe quitting your job, like things like that. Just use common sense. I have a lot of conversations with people about that, and some people don't want to hear that answer, and you know, do it however you feel fit, but just in general, like, you know, use common sense. Okay, so now as you're working with your spirit guide and you're connecting with them, notice who they are, like as a person. So yes, their true form is an orb. Your spirit guides are like balls of light, basically, like orbs. At the same time, though, they oftentimes present themselves in humanoid form. And the reason they do that is for our sake. And they don't just choose any random humanoid form, they choose a form or a human from a past life that the two of you have had. They choose a humanoid form from a past life that the two of you have had. And so they choose this on purpose because what they're doing is they're trying to make it easy for you um, to relate to them. Like, oh, this isn't just any random soul. This is a soul that I've had a past life with. And not just one past life, most likely many past lives with. But they're choosing a specific past life because this is how they're trying to help and assist you in this lifetime. So are they a younger female, like presenting themselves as a younger female person? Are they presenting themselves as an older male, and so on? So you get to know how they're presenting themselves. Their persona is what I call it. And then when you figure out what their persona is, don't just leave it at that. Ask, well, why are they choosing this persona? So just like you've had many past lives, not just one, but many, is it possible that your spirit guides have also had many past lives and also many past lives with you? So the past life that they choose isn't just a random past life that they've had, it's a random past life that they've had with you. But now, if you've had 10, 20, 50, 100 different past lives together, why are they choosing just that one past life and not just any random past life? And the reason is because what they're doing is they're choosing a past life that is specific to how they can help you the most. So then that's when you get curiosity. So if you're watching this and you're taking notes, I want you to write these two words down: get curious. So all the stuff that I developed, like as my curriculum, is all about me just getting curious. This is my 7-day channeling mastery retreat, and it's a close to 200-page manual. And that's me just getting curious, getting curious. And get curious and try to figure out and try to understand, who is the spirit guide, why are they here, how are they here to help me, what can I do to improve my connection with my spirit guide, what areas of my life is a spirit guide, and just start asking these questions and getting to know them. And then the other question I want you to ask is, what is it like to be a spirit guide? If I was a spirit guide, what would that be like for me? If I was a spirit guide, what could I do to improve my connection and my communication with the person I'm trying to guide who's incarnated? How can I go about working and collaborating with this person that I'm trying to guide? And how can I make it easier for them and easier for me? And so on. And start to get curious about these kind of questions. Does this make sense? So this is the Ask Ken show. If you're watching, thank you for tuning in. And if you're watching the recording, thank you for tuning in as well. And if you are watching live, feel free to say your name and where you're from. So we have Armanda from Osirius, BC, so British Columbia, Canada. We have Kevin from Saskatchewan, Canada. Um, uh, we have some people from YouTube and TikTok and also on Instagram and all the other different platforms. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So excited to have all of you, Kiki and Nijan and Lindsay, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Permi, thank you for Permi for joining. Also, um, and just say hi, where you're from, and I'll give you a shout out. And also, if you have any questions about spirituality or any questions at all, just go ahead and ask, and I will live channel the answers here on the air. Okay, let's go to our next question. So we have, does the shape of a crystal matter? So I do teach crystal channeling, and in my later workshops, I also teach crystal healing, which is super cool. So the reason I ask this is because oftentimes we get all these different kinds of crystals. So I'm pulling some out right now. Oh, we got Julianne from California. Welcome, Julianne. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, so we have all different kinds of crystals. Ooh, this one give me goosebumps right now. The crystal diva just showed up. Just to clarify, there are crystal divas, but not every crystal has a crystal diva, and some do, some don't. And so, and it doesn't just because a crystal. I want to make a disclaimer. Just because a crystal doesn't have a crystal diva, it doesn't mean it's bad or not as powerful. It can be just as powerful, and a crystal diva is a bonus. Okay, so don't make this correlation or belief. So this one definitely has a crystal diva. This one's really powerful. I love it. And I'm feeling the crystal diva. She's over here. She's really strong right now. I could feel her on my face and my shoulders and my arm and everything, getting goosebumps. Okay, so the reason this question comes up is because what can happen is there's a whole entire training that I do. It's probably about 2 to 3 hours on crystal channeling, how to channel crystals, how to channel crystal divas, how to do what's called psychometry. Psychometry is where you can read objects. You can, you can actually read different types of objects. Like it doesn't matter what it is, what material it is. Some materials hold energy better than others, but all let's say grandma wears like a lapel, like a piece of jewelry, and then grandma dies, and then the kids come in to clean out the house and they notice this piece of jewelry, but they don't know much about it. They could take it to somebody who knows how to do psychometry, read energies of an object. And then what they can do is go, oh, this belonged to your grandma, right? Yeah, okay. And this is, she wore it on special occasions. And when grandma was alive, she would imbued or infuse that object, that piece of that piece of jewelry with her energy. And sometimes it's positive and sometimes it's not positive. Like it might be she always wore this certain ring or something like that, but maybe she had a very rough time with her father, her husband, which would be a grandfather. And so maybe that energy of the ring, the energy imbued in that ring, maybe isn't as healthy as it could be, or as strong, like in a positive. It's not bad, it's just different, right? But maybe this jewelry she only wore on special occasions for weddings and anniversaries and positive occasions. So then you, as a reader, can take this piece of jewelry and you can actually read the energy in it and then give messages to the person that you're giving the reading to. So try it. Like everything that I teach, I want you to try it. Like, I don't want you to just listen to the Ask Ken show and go, oh, that was good, that was great. No, actually play with this stuff. Try different objects, try different materials. Don't just try it once, try it many times, depending on the strength of the emotion. So if grandma wore this piece of jewelry and the times that she wore it, the occasions were very neutral, there might not be very much energy imbued into that object. But if there's a high energy, emotional charge that's imbued into this object during those occasions, then it's more likely to have be stronger, more easier to read many years or decades even later. Can the energy that's imbued in the object fade over time? The answer is yes, it can, but it's still echoes, I guess you would call it. There would still be echoes or a residual of that energy in that object, in that whatever it is you're trying to read. And I want to make it clear, it doesn't have to be just crystals, but I use crystals as the example to play with and practice psychometry in my training. And the reason I do that is because that leads us to the next exercise, which is crystal channeling, and how to actually get and channel crystals, and not just guess, because sometimes you go into a crystal store or a metaphysical store or something like that, a metaphysical shop, like, and they have all these crystals everywhere, and they say, oh, this crystal does these 10 things or 15 things. And I have one of those actually right here where, this is a crystal, and then they say this is what it does and all this stuff. And usually when they give, in this case, I think it's like about 10 things, 8 to 10 things on this list, maybe one or two might be correct and the other ones aren't. And so you can figure out with channeling which one of these are correct and which ones are not. And then if you're watching this, you can write this down. Ask yourself, what is not on this list that this crystal does? What is not on this list that this crystal does? Because I guarantee that there's going to be not on like, yes, some of the things, one or two, maybe three things on that list are true, are accurate. But what else does it do that's not there? And then work with your spirit guides to figure that out. Now, like I said earlier, not all crystals, but quite a few have crystal divas associated with it. So then what you can do if you're doing crystal channeling is you can ask and figure out if a crystal diva is associated with this crystal. And if it isn't, that's okay. It can still be powerful. If it is, and it does have a crystal diva associated, then figure out, okay, where is this crystal diva around? Is it around? Is it present? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. You can sometimes call on it, invite it in, and then have that crystal diva come in, figure out where the crystal diva is physically around you. In this case, this crystal diva is right here. She's still here. And then get to know the crystal diva. Take a moment, get to know the characteristics, the attributes. It could be a male as well. They are elementals. They're part of the elemental kingdom. It's a whole other topic. Dragons are part of the elemental kingdom. Sprites and fairies are part of the elemental kingdom. So are pixies, things like that. There's a bunch more that are part of the elemental kingdom. And then get to know this crystal diva. And then, you ready for this? The next question that you ask is, ask the crystal diva, what else can you tell me about this crystal? What else? What else is there to know about it? What other properties does it have? What other characteristics does it have? How can it be useful? And then you can work with the crystal diva and your spirit guides to figure out how you can utilize this crystal diva. Now, I want to make it clear is that there's most crystals, from my experience, they need to be physically touched, like for them to be effective. There are some crystals where you can put them in a room and it will energize the room, brighten up the room, make it lighter energy, all that, clear the room, all that cool stuff, amazing stuff. But most crystals, that in order for them to be effective and useful to you, you need to physically touch them. And that's why things like necklaces or earrings or rings, like jewelry, or bracelets, anklets, things like that, that you're actually physically touching are very useful. I don't wear jewelry, but what I do is every once in a while, I'll throw a crystal in my pocket. And then as I'm walking around, I'll be like, oh, what is that in my pocket? Oh, yeah. And then I'll pull out, what you got in your pocket, stuff like that. But then I'm like, oh, yeah, crystal. Oh, yeah. And then I physically touch it. And then after a while, I put it back in my pocket. And then maybe, 20 minutes, an hour later, I'm like, oh, yeah, what's that in my pocket? Pull it out, feel it again. And then I go throughout my day physically touching that crystal. So I know some of the ladies that like to put them in their bra and stuff like that. That's fine. That works too. So get to know your crystals. If you have any crystals, get to know them. but don't just be superficial about it. Don't just blindly believe what's written on the pieces of paper or what they say in the books or online. They could be true sometimes, oftentimes they're not. But get to know them on an each individual basis. And also, it could be the same type of crystal, but from different sources, maybe from different parts of the planet. Like it could be an amethyst from different parts of the planet. It could be, different caves, different areas. So those also could have their own nuances, their own subtleties that make them different amongst themselves, even though they're part of the same overall crystal family. Check to see if you can feel the crystal from a distance or if you need to physically touch it. Sometimes I'll go into like a crystal shop or a place where they have crystals and I'll just hover my hand over the crystals and I'm like, whoa, I feel that one. Whoa, feel that one. But sometimes I'm like, no, I need to actually physically touch this one. And sometimes you don't. But sometimes proximity matters as well. Another thing as well, sometimes size matters as well. Sometimes it doesn't. So what I mean by that is, let's say you go into a crystal shop and you see one crystal for like this the same kind of crystals. You can see a whole bunch of the same kind. And one is like $50 and it's pretty big. But another one of the same kind is maybe $5, but it's much smaller. Sometimes the small one is just as powerful as the big one, but not always. Sometimes the big one is the one that's going to be more powerful. So some like amethyst, actually size does matter in that case where it really does emanate more energy. And it might be worth, if it's in your budget, to buy the more expensive one, then do that. But if not, sometimes the small one's adequate and does the job and it does the trick. Sometimes people go excessive on the crystals and they want the biggest and the biggest, baddest crystal. And sometimes it matters, but sometimes not. And so just be discerning and work with your spirit guides as to what crystals are meant for you. And that's another disclaimer as well, is that just because a crystal says certain things on it doesn't mean it's going to be useful for you. So what you can do is use your channeling to check with your spirit guides as to what crystals are going to be useful for you in this season of your life, this time in your life, and figure out, okay, so because a crystal, like again, if you read this or whatever, or even if you don't, even if you channel it and it says, oh, this crystal helps with manifestation. Okay. But there might be in a big, massive crystal shop. I've been to crystal shops where there's like thousands of crystals. And in these crystal shops, there might be 10 or 20 or even 30 different crystals that help with manifestation. 10 or 20 or even 30 crystals that help with manifestation. So then what you can do is you can actually 10 or 15 that help with manifestation, and work with your spirit guides and figure out which one or two of those crystals are going to help you the most significantly. Because the other ones might help with manifestation, but just at a lower level. Okay, so how can you find the one or two so that, not just only so that you're using your money wisely, but also so that you're getting the most benefit from it? And then you want to take it a step further, clearing your crystals so you can clear them. Some of them don't need clearing, like this one, for example, doesn't need clearing. It's self-clearing. But some of them do. Some of them do. Some of them do need clearing. But then if you want to take it even a step further, work on amplifying the energy in that crystal, amplifying the benefits of that crystal to make it even stronger, even more powerful. Okay, so that's another little pro tip. And then there's also attunements that I give my students to help them to do this at even stronger. Like sometimes we need spiritual upgrades to be able to do these more advanced techniques, like clearing your crystal, enhancing and upgrading the crystal, the energy of the crystal to make it even more powerful. So I give those as well, spiritual upgrades along the journey as my students take my training. Cool. So now the next question is, does the shape of a crystal matter? The answer is sometimes and sometimes not. So let's say what can happen is, let's say you get one of those those beads, crystal bracelets, and they're all round. So that means they've been machined to be nice and round and circular. And then they poke a hole through it, and then you put a string through it, and you make a bracelet or an anklet or a necklace, with all the beads around and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Oftentimes they're fine. However, sometimes what happens is when they put these crystals through the machines, it affects the interrupt of the domains of the direction of the different. So it affects basically the molecular structure sometimes of the crystals. Some crystals it doesn't matter. You can, I had a client, she had a really amazing like crystal wand, and then she accidentally dropped it and it broke. The tip of it broke off, and she's like, "Oh, this is garbage. This is useless now." I'm like, "No, the crystal's still fine. It's just as powerful. It doesn't matter whether the tip is broken off. It's still just as powerful." And she couldn't, but I asked her to check and all that. And she's like, "Oh yeah, it is just as powerful." So this is where, um, in that case, it didn't matter whether she dropped it or not. The crystal was still just as powerful. Same thing with machining crystals. Sometimes you can machine crystals and it won't affect the integrity of like a magnet, and the magnet has the lines that go a certain way, and if they all are aligned in the same way, then you put the filings, the iron filings around on a piece of paper, and you'll see like the shape of the magnet and all that. Well, if you take that magnet and you interrupt and you break you jar it really hard or something like that, and then now all the lines are facing different directions, and then you put that piece of paper on and you put the metal filings on that magnet, you'll notice that it doesn't create the same pattern at all, if any pattern at all, or it's all random pattern. So the same kind of concept can happen with crystals when they machine crystals. However, certain crystals at certain shapes can actually be even more powerful when they machine them. For example, Merkabahs. So I do a whole training on Merkabahs. I do Merkabah activations, and this is the shape of a Merkabah. So it has six sides, eight sides. Sorry, so I have to count them. And eight sides of this Merkabah. And this is the case where what's happening in this situation is working with Archangel Metatron, who does sacred geometry, and putting a crystal into a shape that does twofold. Now it's not just, and you can do Merkabahs in different, like if you go to a crystal shop and stuff like that, oftentimes, because I go hunting for Merkabahs, I love them. I'm like on a Merkabah hunt. And most of the time, they will be in like either like a wood form or metal form, like a copper form, and they're good. That's good. They're powerful. I love them. And then what happens though is when you put a crystal, especially the proper kind of crystal, in this case, it's a very high powerful quartz crystal, into a Merkabah shape, it makes the Merkabah, the shape of it, the sacred geometry shape, even more powerful. So it amplifies it. How cool is that? And this is a case where shape does actually help, where machining certain crystal into different shape does help. And some of my clients, I'm not too much into this, but they're into like skulls. They love skulls. So they get all these skull crystals and stuff like that. If that's you, leave a message. I honor you. I respect you. It's kind of an interesting thing. This one particular client I'm thinking of, she used to be a Viking in a past lifetime. She even looks like a Viking in this lifetime. Like it's so cool to like witness her, and super amazing channeler, one of my students. And she just loves like skulls. She's a skull fanatic and all that. So play with your different crystals. Try different shapes. Try buying different shapes. Oh, and one more thing before we change topics about the crystals. One more thing is when you see a crystal, like at a shop or metaphysical store or somewhere like that, crystal shop, sometimes what I do is I'll buy a crystal, but it's not for me. And I know it's not for me. It's for somebody else. Sometimes I know who that person is right away, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just buy a crystal because I know it's for somebody else that I haven't met yet. And I do this quite frequently. Like I'll buy a crystal and I'll just like, okay, this isn't for me, but I know it's for somebody. And then sure enough, like I'll have that me, and then I'll meet and I'll be like, oh, that's the person. This is who this crystal's for. And then I'll give that crystal to that person. And they're like, "How did you know? This is exactly what I needed at this time. How did you know? This is exactly what I needed at this time." And then I give them that crystal and it's perfect for them in this season of their life. And they're just loving it and they're so happy about it. Like, how cool is that, right? So this is where you can what you can do is buy crystals for other people with the intention of giving it away. And just have fun with it. Crystals are meant to be fun and playful. Sometimes people take crystals too serious. Like, sometimes people are like, "Oh, I can't leave anywhere without my certain crystal or crystals or whatever." I'm like, you don't need them. They're enhancers. Don't become dependent on them. Keep them more like an enhancer, like a thing that you can use to things, simplify things, make things even more um, up level, if you want to call it that. But don't be afraid. Like, some people are like, "Oh, I was going to go to the mall on my way home from work, but because I didn't have my protection crystal bracelet or necklace or whatever, I can't go. I didn't have my, protection this or protection that. I can't go." It's like, no, you can go. You'll be fine. You'll be safe. If you're an empath, and if you're watching this, you most likely are an empath. There's whole other trainings you can do where I help my students become a healthy empath, an empowered empath. Being an empath is super cool and it's a superpower, and you could do amazing things when you learn how to be a healthy empath and use it to enhance your abilities and do amazing things with it, where you can help yourself and you could help others at really high levels. So that's a whole different topic about being an empath. But in the meantime, have your crystals just be enhancers and supports to your everyday journey without becoming too reliant or too dependent on them. Does that make sense? So if you're watching this, just say hi. Let me know about your crystals. Maybe send a picture, show it, put it in the comments. I'd love to see them. Let's just see if I have any questions that come in. Okay, so we have Julianne from California. Welcome, Julianne. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube. Yeah, pictures, fairy divas. I love it. Okay, we have a question from Foxwatch 369. I've been meditating, and the more I do, the more I hate people. I see that we're not all in sync with nature. In fact, I feel like, yeah, evil. Yeah, and that's fine. And so, how do I attain peace? Um, I love like really just basics, fundamental training on how do I like I've had some people in the spirituality industry, they're like, I just hate people. I don't like people. And I get it. I get it. Like, there's two sides of it. Um, One of the biggest, most easy, simple, sometimes we just have to like go back to basics. And one of my favorite basics is compassion. Like the whole like Dalai Lama, the Buddha, just compassion, feel others. I had someone the other day that like had a freak out or whatever, and instead of me being angry and upset, I'm just like looking at that person with compassion, with love, like wow, like it's obviously you're hurting inside and there's something going on inside. And instead of me being angry, so what happens in relationships is oftentimes, and it doesn't have to be intimate, it could be just friendship or family members or work related or whatever, but one person's triggers the other person's pain, and then that pain, their pain triggers the other, and then it keeps, and then that's how things escalate. But instead, if you can just feel into compassion, and if you're watching this right now, think of somebody that has upset you recently or that you're upset with, and instead feel compassion for them. Feel, again, kind of like this whole concept of putting yourself in their shoes. Do unto others as you have them do unto you, the golden rule, like things like that. But it's also too that I feel there's a very important humanity. I do strongly believe, like Star Trek, where we can get to a point where we're exploring space and we've overcome our problems as a species and we've come to a common understanding that we can get along. We might still have differences. I love the Morgan Freeman quote that he actually said fairly recently. He said, "We need to get back to a day when we can have differences of opinions and still get along." And I agree with that. We need to get back to a day where we can have differences of opinions and still be friends and still get along. It's okay. I have lots of people out there that we're friends, and they have different opinions on this, different opinions on that, maybe political views. Some might like this kind of pop drink, and I like the other one. Or some people like cacao. I like matcha. I like both, but stuff. Or they like coffee, and I don't. But I like cacao, and ceremonial cacao is my favorite, along with matcha is my favorite as well. But that's okay. We can still be friends. Like really, people. We can still be friends just because you like cacao and I like matcha, or you like coffee and I don't. That's okay. Or whatever it is. It could be, and overall, are your overall values relatively the same? And if even if they're not, can you still have compassion for that person? Also, too, what I want you to do is I want you to think back into your life and go back maybe in different times in your life. Were you the same when you were younger? Were there times in your either your childhood or your 20s or something like that where you maybe weren't quite as healthy as you are now? Maybe you've gone through a phase of healing, of journey, of growth, and maybe back in those previous days, previous years, you weren't quite as healthy, but you've changed and grown. So can you give another person space to grow and evolve like you have? They might change, they might not, they might get healthier, they might not, but just accept them for who they are in this moment. Not necessarily, there's the whole boundaries thing, all that. I'm not going to get into that. But basically, just have compassion for them that that's where they're at in their journey, and love them for who they are and right now in this moment, not trying to change them, not trying to fix them, not trying to make them something different than they are, but just being okay with where they're at in their journey, knowing that they they might change, might grow, they might evolve, they might become something different, and that's okay. And they might not, and be okay with that as well. So this is where the no attachments theory comes in. So when I'm going to say this, it might sound cold, it might sound callous. It's not. You still have compassion for the people, you still have empathy, you still have emotional connection, but you're not attached to the person, whether you stay connected to them, whether you don't, whether whether they stay in your life or whether they don't. It doesn't mean if they leave, you're not sad, you don't have grief. If they die or they leave your life or ghost you or whatever, it doesn't, or you have a fallout, things like that. It doesn't mean you still don't feel those emotions. You do, but you're not devastated because of it. And also, too, that you're not attached to how they should change or be different. This is really important in relationships, because oftentimes a lot of the relationships that I see with, my students, my clients, things like that, is the person that they're with, or they're trying to fix and change a coworker, or they're trying to fix and change a friend. Instead of just accepting that person for who they are and giving them time for that person to change on their own, if they might and they might not, because they have free will, but being okay with that as well. And then if it's a good fit, staying connected to that person. And if it's not, that's okay as well. And so, as a society as a whole, my strongest feeling is that society as a whole is relatively good, relatively moral, and relatively healthy. And I never used to believe this. I used to think there was so much hate in the world, and so much anger, and all this other stuff. And then what I always do is anytime I have a belief, oftentimes they're called limiting beliefs because they limit you from going further. So anytime I notice myself having a belief about something, I challenge it. So what I did is I purposely went to an airport, the airport closest to me, international airport, and I paid for parking and everything, which is super crazy expensive at an airport if you know anything about that. But I didn't care. I just wanted to go to an airport. And I just sat there by the arrivals section where people come through the gates and meet their family members. And I sat there for like 2 or 3 hours, and I watched all the love, and I was literally like sitting in the back, like crying, watching all these like family. I almost feel like crying right now, watching all these family members reunite and friends reunite, and they're so happy to see each other. And I'm like, wow, there's like love everywhere. Like there's so much love in the world. And then I kept afterward, I like for the weeks following, and I still do to this day, I'm like, you know what, where else is there love? So I'm at the mall, and I'm watching these two kids running down the hall, and they're playing, and I'm like, there's love right there. I'm watching, a couple, they're holding hands. I'm like, oh, there's love. And I'm watching another, like a child and a mother, and they're, like holding it and teasing, and I'm like, oh, there's more love. I'm getting goosebumps everywhere. And there's so much love in the world when you actually look for it, when you watch for it. And there's way more love than there is non-love, than there is so-called evil or any of that. And there's a few, like a small percentage that maybe aren't as healthy. And again, having compassion for those people. So what was really interesting was I just watched this video about where like a Joe Dispenza, he was talking about where they had this person in this other room, and they're just sitting there and they're volunteer for this experiment, but they had no idea what was going on. They had no idea that there were other people around them. They were just put in this room in isolation, and Joe Dispenza had them, just close your eyes and sit there in meditation and don't do anything, just sit there. So in the other room beside them, there was three people in the other room, and at a certain period of time, they asked those three people to send loving energy to this other person, the third person. And this person in the room was wearing a heart monitor. And at that exact moment that these three people started sending loving energy to this person in this other room, that this other person had no idea that there was other people around them and doing any of this, all of a sudden they noticed that the heart monitor that this person in the room by themselves was wearing, it started to increase the loving energy, the loving frequency, and the coherence, the coherence of the frequency of the heart monitor on this person started dramatically increased. I read an Osho quote one time where he said, whenever you're feeling sad or upset about someone, it's actually you're sending those energies to them. So never feel sad and upset for somebody. Let's say somebody's going through a struggle and you send this, you're like, oh, I feel so bad for you and it must be so horrible. And now you're feeling sad and upset for this person. What you're actually doing is you're exasperating that person's situation because they're picking up on that. They're imbuing and receiving these energies that you're sending them. So Osho said, instead, do the opposite. Send them loving energy, send them compassion, send them understanding, send them good positive vibes, positive frequencies, help increase their mood. And so what I do oftentimes in my workshops and my ascension group trainings, my monthly ascension healings, is I will have the whole group and I'll get them to send love to the world. And there's these Buddhas that these monks that I do these, events with where they'll have, like, I've been to ones where there's 1,000 people and all 1,000 people are sending love to the world and love to the energy. And this is one of the many factors that we can do to help increase and spread even more love to the world, because there's so much out there. There's so much abundance of love out there. It's everywhere. Just look for it. And as we do this on a regular, consistent basis, it helps to increase even more. And then some of these monks that I know, they have like 1 million people all at the same time sending love to the world. There's an example of like where the crime rate in Washington, D.C. was like super, super high. And then these monks and meditators came in from all around the world. And sure enough, they decreased the crime rate by a dramatic amount for that certain period of time that they flew into Washington, D.C. to pray love and healing and kindness and compassion to that city. So this is examples of where it really works. This stuff really works. Can you see the hope in humanity? Can you see the positive? That I strongly feel that, like in Star Trek, we might go through our struggles, but we're eventually going to get through that, and we're going to come these world wars and these fights and these arguments and stuff like that. So try to really just be hopeful and put positive to this world. So thank you, Antonio, for your question. That was really beautiful. This is something I'm really compassionate about. And this is why I do what I do. I do this because I strongly feel that we as a world, we can grow. I strongly feel that we as a planet, we can grow and we can transcend the old school mentality of our parents, our grandparents, our great-great-grandparents. And one of the ways that we can do it is what I just taught earlier, which is you feel into your spirit guides, you get to know your spirit guide team, and then what you do is you start to work with them to help you transcend this worldly stuff that's going on, just like this great ascended masters that came before us. They all showed us examples of how to do this. So it's not anything new. And many of these ascended masters, they said, you can do what I can do and even greater. And you can. You can do what I can do and even greater. You can do what they can do and even greater. and you can stand on their shoulders and use them as examples for how to go even higher and greater and do amazing things with this life. So if you're watching this, this is the Ask Ken show. And thank you all for tuning in. It's such a blessing to have you here today. And I do this every month. And the reason why is because where else do you go to get your spiritual questions asked and answered? And I live channel the answers. And I do this because I want my students, I want to show them that you can live channel just like I do and make it an everyday normal part of your life. And it's just integrated into you. And it's a normal part of your life where you can use it in all the areas of your life. I want to get all my students is where you can channel anywhere, anytime, on the spot, in the moment, any situation, any circumstance. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you all soon. Love you all. See you soon. Bye.